If you're new to the channel, good. This should hopefully be the only time you're ever here because most of what I do is boring and really specific. But I am James. I am co-owner of the Arms Room, which is where I'm at right now. This is a retail store in Northern California in the Sacramento area. I'm also one of the co-owners of Combat Zone Paintball and Airsoft, which is a field up in Roseville, which is about an hour or so north of Sacramento. And my normal public play fee is $25. I host two pretty big single day events per year. One is Operation Homefront, which is like a mil sim kind of Red Dawn ripoff. That's usually about $50 pre-sale. And the other one I do is Yellow Rocks, which is like a moonshiner bootlegger, kind of lawless meets like some prohibition stuff, which is the same price. Those events are usually $50 online and then $75 at the door. I also host Operation New Dawn, and usually an annual Halloween game or a fall-themed game in October. That's usually $35 online and usually $40 or $50 at the door. I'm still experimenting with that format. In the last 2 years, both Homefront and Yellow Rocks have consistently done about $7,000 to $10,000, and that's with pre-sale, item pre-sale, BBs, blah, 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 stuff they're buying, consumables and stuff. That is pre-sale and day of sale as well. And my New Dawn and my Halloween events usually do about $3,000 or so for a single day. I am going to be talking about holding events and how to do it. So this isn't really a player video. This is like an adult video? I don't know. So, situation. You're a standard public play field. You're a regular airsoft field and you're wanting to get into bigger events because you want money. The customer demographic you're going to be dealing with is generally newer, younger, more casual, hasn't really had a chance to experience anything outside of your field, but they've been on social media, they've seen what's going on, they've seen like what else is out there. They just don't have the ability to travel to another state or 4 hours away or 6 hours away or whatever, or they don't have the money for it. What we're going to talk about, game and rule design, plus how to make some more money at the event you're trying to make more money from. I'm going to give you two questions that you need to be asking yourself constantly throughout this creative design process. One is, why should I pay more than the normal field fee for your event when I could just not go, save money, and come back next weekend? Or if it's like a Saturday only event, which is popular, why should I do your Saturday event instead of your Sunday event where it's going to be normal price anyway? The other question you need to be constantly asking yourselves, because the players are going to ask you, how is this going to be significantly different than public play? Now, when I say significant, I mean that term significant needs to match the significant increase of your public play field fee. So if you're charging $50 and your normal field entrance fee is $25, okay, well, what am I getting for that extra $25? Because you're charging me 2 days of play for one. So I better be getting some serious value out of this. Otherwise, I'm going to make angry things on your Discord. What style or genre generally works best? Generally speaking, like your typical modern military, Call of Duty, Rainbow Six Siege, Tarkov, anything that looks like modern military or that looks like a popular first-person shooter is usually where you're going to make the most money. Hey, old white guy, why don't you go on Twitch, twitch.com right now, look up what the most popular first-person shooters are, look at all the viewers for all those games and go, maybe I should do an event that basically copies that, because this is a metric I can use to gauge how popular this video game is, so there's a decent chance my players are playing this game at home as well. I personally stay away from like the piggybacking off modern actual events. I don't like drug themes. Special guest cameo. I'm not going to host an event where a teenager has the ability to carry cocaine from point A to point B, because when they're telling their friends at school, their parents, their teachers, when they're telling their non-airsofty people about it, it could come back with mixed reviews. Kind of the same thing with modern terrorism. It just gets really anti-Arabic and racist, and I just stay away from all of that stuff. My Red Dawn event, which is Homefront, that's a fictitious American faction and a fictitious Russian faction. Granted, they are both American and Russian, but there's no correlation. It's just a parallel universe where the where the Cold War kicked off. But it's just a parallel fictitious universe. Cold War stuff you can usually do pretty safely because it's been in modern media and in pop culture for before most of us were born. All the Rocky movies, you got Bond in there, some of the cool James Bond film, GoldenEye, all kinds of, Red Dawn, all kinds of stuff. Spies Like Us, Stripes, for crying out loud. So usually Russian versus American is pretty okay to do. No one's really gonna bat an eye at that. Even right now with the modern conflict, if you do a good enough job of demonstrating how fictitious it is, no one cares. Again, drugs get touchy, but what actually some people, if you want to do like some sort of drug style theme, do moonshine or still running. That's what my Yellow Rocks event is, and I get a bunch of teenagers that go to that. But moonshine is kind of like it has this silly kind of connotation to it because it's just so old and antiquated. No one really bats an eye out of it because it's not really a modern issue. Lawless was a great movie. You got all the different Prohibition movie, the Untouchables and stuff like that. No one really bats an eye at moonshine, at like making their own alcohol. Let's talk about a rule set. We're going to start with like an FPS weapons rule set. This will be specific to the field, especially if you don't own the field. You're going to kind of just hit a wall real quick. With FPS, I personally think a special event should come with some sort of realistic gun aspect. So like a kid with an HB8 out high kappa with a mag adapter that can shoot at 1.5 joules or 400 FPS, even though the gun can withstand that pressure because of the upgrades, that's not really military simulation. But if you want to hold like a big airsoft event for that, yeah, sure, go right ahead. It just depends on what's the overall consistent theme you're trying to sell and how are you reinforcing that theme with the optics and your rules and your uniform, blah, blah, blah. If you look at Milsim West and Desert Fox events, in my opinion, that has the best FPS rule set that they have. It separates LMGs, MMGs, HMGs, all that stuff. So there's a different FPS for if you have like a BAR, you can do 1.5 joules and 0 M&D. But if you have something like a 240, you can go up to about 2 joules with like a 50-foot engagement distance. Because if you think about what the gun is replicated after, a BAR and a 240 are two very different kind of things. DFE does this really cool SMG weapons class where if it's replicated after an SMG and it's at like 1 joule or under, you can burst, and I really like that. I personally let GBBR or GBB SMG players go up to about 1.5 joules or 400 feet per second with a .2, and I will let them use like full auto or short burst because A, there's not going to be a whole lot of those players anyway, and B, I also cap the magazines at about, I think like 50 or 60. So let's say you completely like blow through an entire magazine. All right, that's 50 rounds. That's your whole magazine. Now you have to reload. God knows airsofters are horrible at reloading. So there's like a fun little balance in that. So that's kind of, I like to do fun weapon-specific classes like that. And that is also seen in video games. I will sometimes do the same thing with characters. Yellow Rocks. One faction, which is the Moonshine Makers or the Feather River Militia. I have a character class called a Bootlegger. Bootleggers are the only ones that can wear flannels of, I think, any color, maybe minus a couple color so they don't get confused with the other factions. But a bootlegger is the only character class that can pick up the objective item and basically score points with the objective item. If you don't have any bootleggers, how are you going to score points? Flip side of that, for the Blackberry Mining Corporation, I have revenuers, which are designed to look like, basically like law enforcement, like the old Elliot Ness types, and they can wear blue and black camouflage. Usually you'll have guys dressing up kind of look like SWAT members, which is basically what I'm going for. And they have a character-specific class that they can do as well. But that is something that is weapon-specific and also color or pattern-specific with a character that will have certain abilities that other players cannot have. As far as picking out what camos or what colors should be what faction, again, I think DFE has one of the better rules on that one. It's like tan and gray versus black and green, and that's pretty good. AMS is another one that has some really good camo colors in there. Usually you go like lightest versus darkest kind of. So for some events, I'll do green, brown, and tan versus black, blue, and gray. That usually will do pretty good with some of my public play stuff that I'll organize. Some events I'll do green versus tan, and then because the two biggest camouflage patterns you're going to have are going to be Woodland M81, which is predominantly green, and then multicam, modern multicam, which is predominantly brown or tan. Those are the two big ones. So depending on what you're doing, I will usually keep them separate. But it's going to be specific to your area and what your players wear a lot of. Format and timeline. I start playing at about 10 to 11. That is after an approximate 1 to 2 hour check-in time, depending on how many players have shown up. But all you're really doing, this is the secret at a field level large event. You're basically taking the regular game types that you do and you're just sexing them up a little with physical props or this, that, and the other. But it's still the basic airsoft game type of take physical prop objective A and take it over to objective B. Oh, by the way, what you're not going to know is I'm going to tell the other guys that you're coming. They're going to set up an ambush, and now it gets really fun, and that's how engagement happens. That's how fun is had. Normal public play games can be between like 10 to 30 minutes, depending on a number of things. We'll usually start about 10 or 11, depending on what time we start and end check-in. We will go for 3 hours until lunch. That gives everyone to sort of get their feet wet, because if you've done events, you know the first hour is just chaos. Have a lunch break for about an hour. That's usually where we'll probably do like maybe some raffles there. Everyone can eat, cool down, blah, 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 and then jump back into the rest of the game, and that will usually go till 4 or 5 o'clock. It's usually about 6 to 8 hours of play. It's a lot going on. I get more positive feedback with that than just doing the normal go on the field, play, come off the field, take a break. Go back on the field, play, come off. That transition time to get players staged and ready eats up way too much time, in my opinion, and there is more value for the dollar for not doing that and just playing the whole way through and only having a lunch break. I keep missions fairly simple. I really like using props and physical props to engage with things. Kids like touching stuff. They like being part of the video game, so use props. Okay, finishing up the video, I had some customers come in, and that sort of took to the end of the day. So now I am home with my dog, who is right here. Hi, Boo. And so we'll just finish the video up. So that's like a bit on player fees and attracting players. Now, once you have the players signed up, how else can we get more money? They need BBs. They need pyro, bandages, all kinds of stuff. Every little thing is going to help. BBs, kind of not, and I only say that because players are going to bring their own, normally, if that's the kind of event you're having. If you were to take something from paintball and say you have to use event-provided BBs, or like you have to buy BBs at the event, no one else does that. That's a very paintballish thing. You wouldn't be wrong in doing that, but I would say if that's the route you're going to go, you'd better make sure you already have a really good standing within your local community, so when you tell that to players, they'll go, oh, that's fine. I love him and his business. I want to support his business, so this is an okay thing for me. Since I own an outdoor field, I mandate biodegradable BBs. That's not a crazy thing to do. Every outdoor field pretty much has that same rule. But what I will do is I will usually give players a discount on BBs if they prepay for them. Usually a few bucks cheaper than what they would already than what they would already cost in store. If I can, I will ask the manufacturer, the distributor manufacturer, like, hey, because they've already paid me a service charge. Is it okay if I charge below MAP for the BBs since I already made $50 on them already? Usually if you throw it in that route, most guys are okay with that. So let's say like MAP for a bottle of 2700.25 bio BBs is like $15 and that's MAP. If you say, hey, he already paid $50, can I give him a discount on BBs and charge 13 for pre-sale or for pre-order BBs only, but the day of the field they will be regular MAP price. Most of the time manufacturers are going to be cool with that. I really like Milsim West tourniquets. If you have an Evike account, you can get them from Evike. You don't make margins, not huge on that, but that Milsim West tourniquet is very popular amongst most the big events anyway. So that's kind of like a dip in the toe of the big event world. Pyro's a big one. Enola Gay's got great margins. Pyro, I do say event pyro only, so I will not let players bring a pyro from outside sources. So if they're sponsored by a shop and that shop gives them a deal, too bad. You tell me what that deal is, I'll confirm it with that shop, and then I'll match the price or something like that. But pyro, you have to buy on site through me. You can usually make a couple grand just in pyro, specifically EG67s. We usually do about 2,000 in EG67s and about $1,000 in EG18s, the smoke grenades. We usually make some good money off BBs. HPA fields, we're a paintball field, so HPA fields are free with admission because we have like the big compressor thing, so we don't charge for HPA fills. But there's all kinds of little stuff like that, and that money is going to help add up. I don't recommend doing t-shirts or like merch, especially like size specific wearable merch. That stuff doesn't really, I mean, if you own a field, you know field merch, event merch, it just doesn't sell quickly at all. Raffle items and patches. You don't need an event patch. Actually, if it's your first time with a format, I don't recommend an event patch because you have literally no idea what the success of it is going to be after you have your first event and you determine it is a success and you determine this is going to be like a regular annual event. Start thinking about a patch design. Rafflers are kind of 50-50. It's going to really depend on what your overhead is for the event. This is going to sound crazy, but I have seen different fields, events, promoters, what have you, giving away used stuff. Don't do that. If you want to have like a used table or if you want to do a swap meet or something like that, sure, do that. But to have an event and charge more than what the normal field fee is and to put a used gun up as a raffle product looks incredibly unprofessional. It looks low budget. It looks poor. To me, it does not reflect positively on the promoter. It basically tells me, like, you don't know what you're doing and you didn't do enough work to get something as simple as an entry-level AEG to give away. If you do a decent enough job on your optics, your marketing, your social media, blah, 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 most companies will float you an entry-level AEG M4 or a battery charger combo or a pistol. They will give you a product that retails for less than $200 if you can convince them of your value and tell them what they're going to get out of it, basically. It is not hard to secure free stuff for events. It's not. If you don't feel like you want to mess with the manufacturers, like for whatever reason you think that's like too big, hit up a store. Or, this is going to sound crazy, just buy some cheap stuff. You can buy some WeTech GBBs, buy some ASG stuff. There's tons of stuff that you could pay retail for at a good deal. And as long as you're doing everything right with your event, you're going to make that back anyway. For the like $35 event, so that's my Halloween and my Operation New Dawn, I don't really plan on really balling out on on raffles, because that's not a big ticket event. And that's just like an entry level. That series of events for me has its purpose. But when it comes to my Yellow Rocks, and especially my home front event for me, hi Bo, my home front event for me is like my staple. That for me, that's like my Super Bowl. So this year I'm doing a main raffle, which is open to everyone, and then I'm doing faction raffles for the U.S. Faction and the Russian faction, basically. So there's like 2 different pools of raffles. But that's a $50 to $75 ticket for a single day event. I'm also having vendor booths, and vendors are donating prizes, so it doesn't come out of my expenses. But I am purchasing stuff at cost, because remember, I'm a retail store as well. So even if I want to buy raffle items, I'm not going to have to really go out of pocket for that, because I will pay vendor price, not retail. You want vendor booths. It will add to the prestige of your event, because it's going to let players know that companies have faith in your event. It might be hard to do on the first one, especially if you're just an event promotion, meaning you don't own the field and you don't own a store. Yeah, that can be kind of tricky. But if you're a field owner and looking to put this together, it should be fairly easy to get some vendor booths there. If you want, email me, slide my DM, send me a comment, send me a message, get a hold of me. We can figure out some ways to kind of help enhance your vendor relationships. I would like to say I am pretty good at that. I have great relationships with all the vendors. A lot of them are just my personal friends. So, I don't know. I got good ideas, and that makes me money. Influencers. Now, this is going to hurt some feelings. If you're telling me that part of the ticket price includes the opportunity to play with insert YouTuber, TikToker, Airsofty famous person here, what you're telling me is that your event isn't good enough on its own merits. Your cake sucks, so you have to decorate the frosting more to hide the fact that your cake sucks. Look at Milsim West. In my opinion, they're the best promotion out there, because they need nothing other than the event itself. They don't need physical props. They don't need fancy influencers. It's like Theater of the Mind. It's Dungeons and Dragons. Whereas other places need to go, oh, look at this exorbitant, extravagant field, because I don't know how to actually host a legitimately good game, so I'm going to hide that with famous people, or with this really cool venue, but the game itself is going to be absolute dog water. It's also telling me that you're just too damn lazy to learn how to do effective social media marketing, which is not very positively reflected on you, considering teenagers rotting their brains with vape smoke are able to navigate social media, and you as an individual that owns a fucking business can't figure out how to do basic social media promotion. So you're going to overpay some random TikTok or whatever that doesn't give a shit about you, your business, or your event to just basically show up and just sort of roll the dice that it's going to be a good event because of that. Stop right now. At some point you're going to crash and fail, and you're going to blame other people, even though it's your fault that you failed because you paid people to do stuff that you could have easily done. Player feedback is something that I feel like goes by uncaringly, or whatever fancy term we want to do for it. I use SurveyMonkey, so I take all the emails of all my registered players, send out a SurveyMonkey thing, and it's like, hey, how old are you? What faction were you? What character class or weapons class were you? How far was the drive for you? Did you have to drive more than an hour? Did you have to drive more than 2 hours? What's your home field? Did this event meet your expectations? Did it exceed your expectations? How could I do this better? How could I do this better? What about next year if we did this? What if next year we did that? What if next year we did this? And give me all of your feedback. Boom. That is how I have really evolved my events, was by legitimately listening to player feedback. And granted, you're going to have to sift through some dumbass opinions that make no sense. And what it really comes down to is they just want to be God mode on the field, and it's just stupid. Or, especially if you're new to events, you have players that have been to all kinds of events and go, hey, I saw you had this improvement that you could make. I saw here was your deficiency. I've been to a few events that are like that, did that same thing. They did X, Y, and Z, and now it's phenomenal. Like, oh my God, I've never done that. Because here's what's funny about a lot of dudes putting events together. They don't do anything. They don't go to other events. They don't go to Milsim West or DFE. They're not trying to go to anywhere on any other events. They just want to live in their own ecosystem, smell their own farts, and tell everyone that their own farts smell like roses. Instead of going to these other widely successful, your American Milsims of the world, your Milsim Wests of the world, that are having consistent events all over the country. And in Milsim West case, internationally, go there, look at how they're conducting events from bottom to top from an operational standpoint, steal their ideas. I do that all the time. It works very well. But what do I know? That's it. That's like a quick down and dirty basic synopsis of a very entry level way to do it. Everything else is really going to depend on the kind of style and flair and the specifics of your environment. It's sort of like a mission will dictate further kind of thing. Drop your questions in the comments. If you want to reach out to me for like some specific help, shoot me an email, jimcaber916@gmail, C-A-B-E-R, jimcaber916, gmail.com, Instagram, all the ways. I'm on all the things.